This is my 135th video on my work with OO gauge. See part 1 of this series for my reasons for getting into OO gauge when I already had a lot invested in working in N gauge and I didn't really have space available for a large, fully operational OO gauge layout. Also see my lengthy series on my N gauge railway modelling for smaller and more complex scenery and smaller scale trains running. This part is perhaps a bit obscure, since it will focus on my efforts to find a way of running LMS non-corridor coaching stock behind locos with simplex couplings. First, I guess I should clarify what simplex couplings are, since not everyone is going to be up on this British model railway history stuff. This picture here shows simplex couplings, basically the two major types, the earlier metal type on the right and the later plastic type on the left. There were a lot more than these two variations, but they all look fairly similar to one or other of these. Simplex couplings were invented by Sidney Pritchard in Devon shortly after the Second World War. He was successful in selling the concept to Meccano of Liverpool, who from then on fitted them to their Hornby Doublow model trains. Sidney Pritchard founded a company initially based on making these couplings. The full name of the company was the Pritchard Patent Product Company Limited, but this was abbreviated to PCO, and this is the large company we still know today as PCO. Simplex couplings continued to be fitted to Hornby Doublow 3-rail and 2-rail stock until Hornby was taken over by the Lyons brothers, Triang, and Triang's tension lock couplings eventually became the standard. Simplex couplings were also used by other companies, notably Trix, and there were lawsuits about this. So basically what this comes down to for the modern modeler is if you acquire Hornby Doublow or Trix rolling stock from back in the 40s, 50s and early 60s, it will almost certainly come fitted with some variety of simplex couplings. Wren rolling stock was also sold with simplex couplings, although they also sold stuff with tension lock couplings as the Wren company came into existence just after Lyons acquired Hornby, producing stock with old Doublow toolings in an arrangement with Triang. Now, I mainly use tension lock couplings on my OO gauge layouts, but I do like to run some of the older model rolling stock. I'm especially keen on acquiring old Hornby Doublow and Wren locos, where they fit my prototype of LMS operations in the 1930s. And I don't want to butcher these old locos to replace the simplex couplings. I'd rather run them with the simplex couplings. Although if they come to me without any couplings, as sometimes happens, I might fit tension lock. I have quite a range of freight stock with simplex couplings, mostly Hornby Doublow, but some Wren and Trix, and even Triang, who did sell some stuff with simplex couplings. So I have no trouble making up freight trains for locos with simplex couplings, but things get more problematic with passenger trains. In the 3-rail era, Hornby made a variety of LMS coaches. I believe these were all tin plate, as seen here. The very early ones just had painted on windows rather than actual transparencies. These are Hornby Doublow 3-rail LMS corridor coaches. This is a Hornby Doublow 3-rail LMS non-corridor coach. There are a couple of problems with these from my point of view. Firstly, the tin plate construction doesn't result in very realistic looking models, and this isn't helped by the fact that paintwork etc. of these old models is often in poor condition. But I suppose one could live with those issues for the sake of modelling nostalgia. A more fundamental problem is that it's not possible to run these 3-rail coaches on a modern layout without substantial modification, as they were made with continuous metal axles connected to both wheels, and so they'll simply short-circuit the controller if placed on modern track. So if I acquired some of these coaches and wanted to run them, I would have to find a way to replace all 4 axles on every coach. I could avoid that problem if I could get Hornby Doublow 2-rail coaches, but I get the impression that they never made LMS coaches in 2-rail. At least I haven't been able to find any. Not in actual LMS livery. I can find plenty of Doublow 2-rail X-LMS coaches in BR livery, but it seems that perhaps Hornby felt that people were more interested in modelling current railways, so they didn't make LMS stock in 2-rail. I don't know. But I do know that I don't have any coaches that came fitted with simplex couplings, as I've never been able to find any that seemed to me a reasonable buy. So how can I run passenger trains behind my old locos with simplex couplings? Well, I did address this to some extent a while ago. To run a passenger train behind a loco with simplex couplings, I only need one coach with a simplex coupling on one end and a tension lock coupling on the other end. Then I can make up the rest of the train with coaches with tension lock couplings. Basically a converter coach. Converter wagons with a simplex coupling on one end and a tension lock coupling on the other end were widely sold and are not hard to find. I have several. But so far as I know, no one ever made converter coaches. So I had to make my own, and I did this first with an older Bachmann LMS corridor coach made in Hong Kong. This came fitted as seen here with Bachmann couplings as still made, with two outer locator holes and a retaining screw through the centre hole. I removed the tension lock coupling from one end of the coach by simply undoing the screw. Then I stole a screw-fitted simplex coupling from a converter wagon that I had. I fitted the simplex coupling to the coach bogie by simply screwing it in place using the original screw from the coach and a washer, as the hole in the simplex coupling was a bit too big. The uncoupling arm protruding down from the simplex coupling proved too long and was snagging on the sleepers, so I simply snipped off the end of it. I don't actually use the uncoupling arms on simplex couplings anyway. It's extremely easy to uncouple simplex couplings manually just by lifting one of the coupled wagons. Much easier to uncouple than tension lock couplings. With the simplex coupling fixed like that, I was able to couple up a train of corridor coaches to a loco with simplex couplings, as seen here with the Wren 264 LMS tank engine. This train ran round my Hornby layout fine. I made that initial converter coach a while ago. Just now I got to looking at how to run a train of non-corridor coaches with a simplex coupled loco. Again, I searched around but couldn't find suitable coaches for sale, and as I say, I don't believe that converter coaches have ever been commercially made, so I looked once again at making my own converter coach, this time for non-corridor stock. I had two types of simplex couplings on hand as spares. I believe these are still made and sold by Pico. Those on the left are the simple metal type, designed to be held in place by a push pin. Those on the right are made of plastic and are more complicated, with pivot boxes and springs and little metal rods to stick down so that they can be uncoupled magnetically. I'm not sure if those ever really caught on. I've never acquired any rolling stock that came fitted with them, but I have managed one way and another to adapt them so that I can fit them myself in some cases. I had a problem with this project in that although I had quite a number of LMS non-corridor coaches from several different manufacturers, none of them came fitted with couplings that could easily be replaced with a simplex coupling. Some of the coaches that I had came with couplings formed right into the bogies. The rest either had clip-in tension lock couplings or, in the case of the newer models, NEM pockets. I wasn't able to find a non-corridor coach with the kind of screw-on couplings like the one I replaced before. So I ended up trying to work with an Airfix non-corridor composite coach that had clip-in couplings. Here you can see the end of the coach with the fitting for the coupling on the bogie. Beside it are the clip-in coupling, which I have removed by simply pulling it out, and the main part of one of the Magni Simplex plastic couplings. I basically just started hacking at the Plasti Simplex part with a craft knife to reduce its end so that it could be inserted into the slot of the fitting on the Airfix coach. It didn't seem to me that there was any way I was going to be able to get the Simplex part to actually clip into the fitting the way the original Airfix coupling did. So I resorted to fixing it in place with CA glue. I deliberately angled it up a bit, down here as the coach is upside down, since it seemed that the fitting was a bit low by Simplex standards. I tried it on the bench with a Hornby 00 two-rail wagon with metal Simplex couplings. My improvised plastic coupling seemed to join up with the standard Hornby metal coupling fine. Next I tried it on my little test track with the Wren tank loco. My glued-in plastic coupling seemed to mesh okay with the metal coupling on the back of the Wren loco, and I was able to move the coach back and forth on the test track with no problems. So next I tried it on my Hornby layout. I wasn't entirely confident as I was afraid that the curves might give the couplings problems, since my glued-in coupling couldn't rotate independently of the bogie. But the loco and coach seemed able to run round the second radius loop on the layout without problems. I had a couple of Airfix non-corridor coaches already sitting in a siding on the layout. They'd been there for months. So I backed the Wren loco with my converter coach into the siding to couple up with the coaches there. Oddly enough, the Airfix to Airfix tension lock coupling between the back of my converter coach and the coach in the siding proved to be a bit of a problem, as my converter coach had the narrow Airfix couplings, whereas the coach in the sidings had the wide Airfix tension lock couplings, and the narrow and wide versions didn't couple well together. I couldn't find any way to get both hooks to engage with the loop of the other coupling, so I had to be content with running with just one hook engaged. However, this did seem to be enough to get the train round the layout without problems, so now I have Simplex to tension lock converter coaches for both corridor and non-corridor stock. I'll finish with a little running video of this train. Here we go then, all being well, I've got my Airfix coach, so long as the glue holds, with a Simplex coupling on the front of it there. How well I can get that in focus, but anyway. And I've got them coupled up, so I've got him coupled up behind the Wren. Well, I think we're calling it a Stanier tank. I think it's actually basically they modelled the British Airways 4MT and then just painted it in LMS colours. But anyway, Wren sold it that way with Simplex couplings on it, and then that's an Airfix coach. I put that Simplex coupling on the front of. It's got a tension lock coupling on the other end, and I've coupled it up to two other Airfix non-corridor coaches of a similar type that have been sitting in that siding behind them for a while. So let's see if we can get the train to go. I may have to poke the Wren coach, the Wren loco, to get it started. We'll see. Yes, and oh no. I got it started by turning the power up. He takes a poke. He goes reasonably fast once he gets going, but you really have to give him a lot of power to start him for some reason, that Wren loco. I had to put the power up to almost full to get him to move, either that or poke him. But once he's moving, now he's only going at 50%. Now even then he's going fairly fast. Slow them down just a little bit. So there we go. What we've got there, the whole point of this is we've got a non-corridor train that will run behind a Simplex coupled loco. Yeah, he's a bit of a jerky runner, this Wren. He runs, but I'm not jerking the controller around very much. I mean, I'm slowing it down a little bit when he suddenly goes faster, but he's a bit erratic. But he does run. The coupling between that first Airfix coach and the rest of them isn't that great, because that first Airfix coach that I replaced the coupling with a Simplex on had narrow couplings on and the other one have wide. And although they're all Airfix couplings, the Airfix narrow and Airfix wide couplings are not that keen on coupling to each other. You can't really get both the hooks to engage. You just give them one hook or the other to engage, and you just have to rely on it. Okay, well, I think I'm going to try and stop him in the station now. I've still got the LMS Suburban train pack that I reviewed on the other line in the station there, so we've got two 3-coach trains, two 3-coach non-corridor trains behind 264 tanks, but rather different ones.